Ethan Cole sat inside the cockpit of his small cargo ship, watching the cold, dark space drift past. His job was simple. He moved supplies between the asteroid mining station and the nearest trading hub. Most days were quiet, even boring. But today, something strange happened. The ship's radar beeped. A faint signal appeared on the screen. It was not from the mining station, not from the hub, and not from any known patrol ship. The signal was weak, flickering as if whoever was sending it was in trouble. Ethan leaned closer. The coordinates were near the edge of the Veil Nebula, a place no sane pilot visited without a good reason. The nebula was full of drifting rocks, dangerous storms, and old wrecks from forgotten wars. His co-pilot, an older man named Harris, looked at the screen and shook his head. "Don't even think about it, kid. That's a death zone. No cargo is worth it." Ethan frowned. "It's not cargo. It's a distress signal." Harris sighed. "Could be pirates luring us in." "Or," Ethan said, adjusting the controls, "it could be someone who's going to die if we don't help." The ship's engines roared as Ethan turned toward the nebula. Harris muttered under his breath, but he did not stop him. As they got closer, the signal grew stronger. Soon they saw it. A small silver craft spinning slowly among drifting rocks. Parts of its hull were ripped open, sparking in the cold vacuum. Ethan activated the scanner. "One life sign," he said. "Still alive, but weak." "Your funeral," Harris muttered. Navigating the asteroid field was like threading a needle in the dark. Ethan's hands were steady, his eyes sharp. The ship weaved through chunks of spinning rock and clouds of glowing dust. Finally, they reached the silver craft and locked onto it with a magnetic tether. "Bring them in," Ethan said. The damaged airlock of the other ship hissed open, and the station's emergency field sealed the gap. Out of the smoke and dim light, a figure stumbled forward. She was tall, with long dark hair that shimmered faintly in the light. Her skin had a warm golden tone, unlike any human Ethan had seen. She wore an elegant robe of deep blue, torn at the edges. A small crown-like band rested on her head, dented from the crash. Her eyes were bright but tired. She spoke in a soft voice, her words strange yet somehow understandable through the translator. "I am Princess Aelira of the Saravari Empire. You have saved my life." Ethan felt awkward. He had never met a royal before, especially not an alien one. Yeah, you're welcome." She looked at him with calm, steady eyes. "I owe you a debt, human." They moved her to the medical bay. A small wound on her arm was treated by the ship's auto-medic. Harris checked her vitals and confirmed she would recover. While she rested, Ethan repaired what he could of her. Ship's systems. He worked quietly, stealing glances at her now and then. She sat upright, watching him work, her posture graceful even in a damaged robe. When he finished, he returned to the cockpit. "We'll get you to a safe port," he told her. She nodded. "My family will hear of this. The Saravari do not forget those who save their own." Ethan chuckled without thinking. "Marry me, then?" It was a joke, something he often said, in jest when someone thanked him. But instead of frowning or looking confused, Aelira smiled gently. "I wish," she said softly. Ethan froze. The words hit him harder than he expected. He wasn't sure if she was teasing him back or if she truly meant it. The rest of the trip to the nearest neutral station was quiet. Ethan kept his focus on flying, though his mind kept replaying her words. When they arrived, Aelira stood at the airlock, ready to leave. She gave Ethan a small bow, her eyes holding his for a moment longer than necessary. "We will meet again, Ethan Cole." Then she was gone, walking down the docking bay with her head held high, flanked by station security. Harris slapped Ethan's shoulder. "You've got strange luck, kid. First you pull a princess out of a burning ship, then she looks at you like you're the only man in the galaxy. What's next?" Ethan didn't answer. He just stared at the empty docking port where she had disappeared, wondering why his chest felt strangely heavy. Out there, beyond the asteroid fields and the nebula, an empire waited, and he had no idea that his small joke had just set events in motion that would change his life forever. 2 weeks passed since Ethan had last seen Princess Aelira. Life at the asteroid mining station returned to its usual slow rhythm. The days were filled with loading cargo, fixing worn-out machinery, and drinking weak coffee in the crew lounge. Ethan told no one about her except Harris, and even he only got the short version. Ethan convinced himself that the princess had simply been polite, that her words had meant nothing. But that quiet ended one morning when a massive ship appeared outside the station, unlike anything the miners had seen before. It was sleek, silver, and shaped like a great wing. Dozens of smaller escort craft hovered around it. The station's comm system buzzed with a message in clear standard. "Attention, Station Vega 12. The Saravari Royal Envoy requests audience with Ethan Cole." The entire station turned to stare at him. Harris grinned. "Looks like your girlfriend's calling." Ethan felt heat rise to his face. Not funny. Within minutes, a shuttle from the envoy's ship docked. Out stepped 3 tall figures in silver armor and deep blue cloaks. Their helmets covered their faces, but their voices were calm and formal. "You are Ethan Cole," the lead guard said. "By order of the Saravari Emperor, you are invited to the Imperial Palace to be honored for your service to Princess Aelira." Ethan blinked. Honored how?" The guard did not answer. "Transport is prepared. You will accompany us now." Ethan had no time to argue. Harris gave him a sharp slap on the back. "Go on. Meet your princess. Just don't sell the station while you're gone." The journey to the Saravari homeworld was unlike anything Ethan had experienced. The envoy's ship traveled through shimmering gates of light, skipping across star systems in minutes. Inside, everything was quiet and elegant. Silver walls, lined with patterns that seemed to shift when he looked at them. When they arrived, the view through the windows stole his breath. The planet below was a swirl of sapphire oceans and emerald continents, dotted with floating spires and massive crystal cities. Ethan was taken to a landing platform where a royal carriage-like craft waited. It glided smoothly through the air, passing gardens that stretched for miles and towers that shone in the sun like glass. Finally, the carriage stopped at the base of a palace that looked as if it had grown from the very earth. Its walls white and smooth, curling upward like the petals of a flower. Inside, he was led through wide halls lined with banners, each bearing a silver crest of a rising sun. The air smelled faintly of flowers. Dozens of alien courtiers watched as he passed, their eyes curious, some even unfriendly. The guards brought him to a grand chamber with a throne at its center. There sat the emperor, tall, dignified, his robe a deep shade of gold. And beside him, standing gracefully, was Princess Aelira. She was dressed in a flowing gown of silver and blue, her hair braided with delicate crystal threads. When she saw Ethan, a small smile touched her lips. "Ethan Cole," the Emperor's voice rang out, deep and clear. "You saved my daughter from certain death. Such courage must not go unrecognized." Ethan cleared his throat. "I just did what anyone would do." "Not anyone," the Emperor said. "Many would have turned away. You risked your life, and according to our law, a life saved is a bond forged." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "A bond?" The courtiers began whispering among themselves. Aelira stepped forward, her expression calm. "In our tradition, Ethan, you are now my life-bonded savior. It is a rare honor, one that cannot be broken." Ethan remembered his joke. "Marry me then," and his stomach tightened. The Emperor continued, "This bond will be recorded in the Hall of Records. You are welcome in our empire as one of our own. No door shall be closed to you." The words sounded grand, but Ethan noticed a few stern faces in the crowd, figures who clearly did not approve. After the ceremony, Elira walked beside him, through a garden filled with glowing flowers and singing fountains. "You look troubled," she said gently. "It's just—" "I didn't expect any of this," Ethan admitted. "Back home, I'm just an engineer. Now people are bowing to me, like I'm someone important." "In our eyes you are," she said. Then her voice grew softer. "And in my eyes you always will be." They paused at a marble bridge crossing a stream of silver fish. Ethan glanced at her, wondering how serious she was. But before he could ask, a shadow moved among the trees. Elira noticed it too. Her hand tensed at her side. "We are being watched," she whispered. Before Ethan could react, the shadow was gone. Elira straightened, her smile returning as if nothing had happened. "We should return to the palace." As they walked back, Ethan's mind was restless. He could not shake the feeling that someone in the palace did not want him there, and that his rescue of Elira had started something much larger than a simple act of kindness. Far above, in a high balcony, two figures in dark robes watched them. One turned to the other and spoke in a low voice. "The human must not remain close." "To her. This bond will change everything." Ethan had been in the palace for 3 days, but he still felt like a visitor who did not belong. Everywhere he went, guards followed at a distance, their armor shining under the palace lights. Courtiers nodded politely, but spoke to him with careful, measured words. He could feel their curiosity and their suspicion. Princess Elira was the only one who seemed completely at ease with him. She often invited him to walk in the gardens, or join her at the observation towers, where they could see the entire city below. From up there, the Saravari capital looked like something out of a dream. Crystal towers reflecting the sun, airships drifting between floating gardens, and silver rivers that glowed faintly even at night. Yet beyond the beauty, Ethan noticed large patrol ships moving in the sky more often than before. One evening, while they were standing on a high balcony, Elira spoke quietly. "The Empire is not as peaceful as it appears, Ethan. Tensions are growing with the Cairn Dominion. They believe we are expanding into their territory." Ethan leaned on the railing. "Is that why people keep looking at me like I'm dangerous?" She gave a small smile. "Partly. The Cairn see your presence here as strange, and some in my court fear that your bond with me will give humans influence over the Empire." Ethan frowned. "It was just an accident. I didn't plan any of this." "I know," she said softly, "but politics rarely cares about intent." The next night, a royal banquet was held in honor of visiting dignitaries. The great hall was filled with long tables covered in food Ethan could barely name, glowing fruits, crystal plates of spiced fish, and bowls of steaming silver broth. Musicians played gentle music while dancers moved gracefully across the floor. Ethan sat beside Elira near the center table. She introduced him to a few officials, though he could sense that some were testing him with their questions. Halfway through the evening, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the hall. A servant dropped a tray and several guards moved quickly to block the doors. At first, Ethan thought it was just an accident, until he saw a flash of metal from the shadows above the hall. His instincts kicked in. "Get down!" he shouted. Grabbing Elira's arm, a small projectile streaked through the air, striking the pillar where her head had been a moment before. Gas hissed out, filling the air with a faint mist. Guests panicked, rushing for the exits, but the guards blocked them, searching for the attacker. Ethan pulled Elira toward a side passage. They ran through dimly lit corridors, the sound of armored boots behind them. "This way!" Elira led him through a narrow archway into a hidden staircase. The steps spiraled downward into a quiet garden far from the banquet hall. They stopped beside a fountain, catching their breath. That was no accident, Ethan said. No, Aelira agreed, her eyes sharp. Someone inside the palace wants me gone. And you as well. Ethan glanced around the garden. Do you have any idea who? There are many who oppose my father's rule, she said, and others who fear change. You represent something new, something they cannot control. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. 2 guards in silver armor entered the garden, searching. When they saw Aelira, they knelt. Your Highness, the hall is secure. The attacker escaped. Aelira's jaw tightened. Double the watch, and no word of this leaves the palace walls. The guards nodded and left. Ethan shook his head. You're acting like this is normal. It is not, she said. But it is not the first attempt on my life, and it will not be the last. That is the price of being next in line to rule. They walked slowly back toward the palace. The corridors were quiet now, the music from the banquet long gone. Before they reached her chambers, Aelira stopped. Ethan, you must understand something. Our bond is more than words. By our law, it ties your fate to mine. If I fall, you will be targeted too. Ethan met her gaze. Then I guess I'll just have to make sure you don't fall. Her lips curved into a small smile. You speak like a knight. I'm an engineer, he said. But I'm learning fast. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He kept thinking about the attack, about the moment the projectile hit, and how close it had been. If he had hesitated, even a second, Aelira might have been gone. He also thought about her words, that their bond tied their fates together. He had never asked for this, but now he felt a strange responsibility toward her. Outside his window, the city lights twinkled, under the stars. Somewhere out there beyond those stars, the Cairn Dominion was watching, and inside the palace, unseen enemies were moving in the shadows. Ethan realized something then. His rescue of the princess had not just changed his life, it had pulled him into a game far bigger than himself. And if he wanted to survive it, he would have to stop being just a visitor. He would have to become part of this world. The morning after the attack, the palace was quieter than usual. Guards stood at every entrance, their eyes sharp and hands resting on their weapons. The air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves knew something dangerous was moving closer. Ethan was called to the Emperor's private council chamber. It was a wide, high room with tall windows that looked out over the silver rivers of the capital. The Emperor sat at the head of a long table, dressed in a robe of deep green and gold. Aelira stood beside him, her posture straight, her eyes unreadable. Ethan. Cole, the Emperor began, you have already proven your courage twice. First, when you saved my daughter from the wreckage, and again when you shielded her from harm at the banquet. Ethan gave a short nod. Anyone in my place would have done the same. The Emperor's gaze sharpened. Not anyone, which is why I am offering you something rare. A position as protector and advisor to Princess Aelira. You would live here, train with our royal guard, and stand by her side in all matters. Ethan was silent for a moment. That sounds permanent. It would be, the Emperor said. You would leave your old life behind. Ethan's thoughts drifted to the mining station. The clanging machines, the quiet routine and Harris's. Dry jokes. It was a simple life, safe and predictable. Staying here would mean stepping into a world of politics, danger, and responsibility. Before he could answer, the Emperor continued, The Cairn Dominion grows bolder. We believe they are moving their fleets toward our borders. Your presence could be more than symbolic. It could be a bridge between our peoples. Ethan frowned. A bridge? Aelira stepped forward. There is one path that could stop the tension before it turns into war. A symbolic union between our worlds, through us. Ethan blinked. You mean She met his gaze without flinching. Marriage. It would unite the Saravari and humans in alliance. The cairn would think twice before attacking a united front. Ethan felt his chest tighten. The memory of his joke, "Marry me then," came rushing back. At the time, it had been nothing but words. Now it was suddenly real. "I don't even know what to say," he admitted. The Emperor's voice was calm but firm. "Think carefully. This is not only about you or my daughter. It is about the survival of our empire, and perhaps your own people." That night, Ethan walked alone in the palace gardens. The moonlight reflected off the still waters of the fountains. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of the silver flowers that grew only in Saravari soil. He thought about Earth. It had been years since he last visited. His family was scattered, his friends busy with their own lives. The mining station had been a job, not a dream. Here, everything was different. Here, he mattered. Not just because of what he had done, but because of what he could do. And then there was Aelira, graceful, strong, and somehow unshaken even in the face of danger. A shadow moved between the trees, breaking his thoughts. A figure stepped into the light, a tall man in dark armor, his face hidden by a hood. "You do not belong here," the stranger said. His voice was cold, like stone scraping against stone. Ethan stayed still. "Who are you?" "That does not matter. Leave the princess and go back to your world, or you will not live to see another sunrise." Before Ethan could reply, the man vanished into the shadows, as if the garden had swallowed him. The next morning, Aelira found him in the training yard. "You look like you didn't sleep," she said. "I didn't," Ethan admitted. "Someone came to me last night, told me to leave you." Her expression darkened. "They are afraid of what you represent. If you stay, they will try again." "Maybe they're right," Ethan said quietly. "If I leave, you won't be in danger because of me." Aelira stepped closer. "You think my life is safer without you?" "The danger has always been there, Ethan. The difference is, now I have someone I can trust." Her words struck something deep inside him. He realized she wasn't asking for a bodyguard. She was asking for someone to stand with her when everyone else was driven by politics or fear. Later that day, the Emperor summoned him again. This time, the air in the council chamber was tense. Reports had arrived. Cairn ships were massing near the border. Their leaders claimed they were conducting exercises, but no one believed it. The Emperor looked directly at Ethan. "We have little time. If the Cairn move, we must show strength and unity now. My daughter has already given her answer. The question is, will you give yours?" Ethan felt the weight of the moment. He thought about the life he would leave behind, the risks he would face, and the fact that once he said yes, there would be no turning back. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know much about empires or politics, but I know about fixing things. And I think this, all of this, is worth fixing. I'll stay." Aelira's eyes softened, and for the first time since the banquet attack, Ethan saw relief in her expression. The Emperor nodded. "Then prepare yourself, Ethan Cole. You are no longer just a visitor here. You are part of the Saravari now." Far beyond the palace walls, in the dark reaches of space, Cairn warships shifted into new formations. Their commanders watched the Saravari capital through long-range sensors, their voices low and calculating. "The human stays," one of them said. "Then we move sooner." Inside the palace, Ethan stood on the balcony beside Aelira, watching the horizon. The sun dipped low, painting the city in shades of gold. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the peace would not last, and when it broke, he would be right here, by her side. The air was thick with tension. Ethan stood on the command deck of the Saravari warship Luminous Dawn, surrounded by a crew of both humans and Saravari. The huge viewport showed the blackness of space dotted with stars, and closer, the looming shapes of Cairn warships forming a dark fleet near the border. Ethan had never commanded a warship before. On Earth, his life was about machines and repairs, not battles. Yet here he was, given control of a small fleet tasked with holding a vital outpost against an enemy far larger and better armed. The Saravari fleet commander, Captain Rian, approached. Him. She was tall and strong, with silver hair braided tightly behind her head. "This outpost is our first line of defense, Ethan. If it falls, the Cairn will flood into our territory." Ethan nodded. "We'll do everything we can." The battle began suddenly. Cairn fighters swarmed the outpost's perimeter, darting like angry hornets. Ethan's ship shook as plasma blasts exploded against the shields. The hum of energy weapons filled the air. Ethan's crew worked quickly, adjusting shield frequencies and rerouting power to weapons. His voice stayed steady as he gave orders, surprising even himself with how natural it felt. "Target the Cairn flagships. Disrupt their command," Ethan commanded. Saravari and human. Pilots dove into the fight with fierce determination. Although outnumbered, they used clever tactics, hiding in asteroid fields, striking from unexpected angles, and exploiting the Cairn's slow communication. Ethan watched the enemy fleet falter under their assault. His heart pounded with hope. Suddenly, the alarm blared again. "Warning! Boarding pods detected," the ship's computer announced. "Prepare to repel boarders," Ethan ordered. Cairn soldiers rappelled down cables and burst through airlocks. The corridors filled with shouting, the clash of weapons, and the smell of burning circuits. Ethan grabbed a plasma rifle and moved with the Saravari guards. The fight was fierce but brief. The combined human Saravari crew pushed back the invaders, securing the ship. As the battle calmed, Ethan heard a voice over the comm system. "Captain Cole, Princess Elira is approaching in a fighter, requesting permission." "To land and join defense," Ethan smiled. "Permission granted. We need all the help we can get." Elira's fighter flashed through space and docked. She stepped onto the command deck, her presence calm and steady. "You fought well," she said. "But the Cairn will not stop." Ethan nodded. "Neither will we." Together they rallied their forces. The final battle was brutal. Waves of Cairn ships crashed against the outpost's defenses. Ethan's quick thinking and Elira's inspiring courage kept their small force fighting against overwhelming odds. After hours of struggle, the Cairn began to retreat. As the enemy withdrew, Ethan and Elira stood on the bridge, watching the stars return to quiet again. "You led well," Elira said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "I had a good commander by my side," she smiled. "You are more than that to me now." Ethan's heart warmed, but the war was far from over. This victory was just the first step in a larger conflict that threatened both their worlds. Back at the palace, celebrations were quiet and cautious. The Emperor praised Ethan's bravery and named him a hero of the Saravari. But in the shadows, whispers grew louder. The enemies inside the court were angry. They saw Ethan's growing influence as a threat to old power. Ethan knew the road ahead would be hard, but standing beside Elira, he was ready to face whatever came next. The palace was filled with a quiet tension. The Great Hall held the Emperor's council, nobles, and advisors from many worlds. The question they faced was one that could change the fate of the Saravari Empire and humanity itself. Ethan stood beside Princess Elira, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him. For months, they had stood side by side through danger, war, and political storms. Now the final moment had come. The Emperor's voice filled the chamber. "The Cairn Dominion has retreated for now, but the threat remains. To secure lasting Peace, we must form an alliance strong enough to withstand any enemy. He turned to Ethan. You, Ethan Cole, have been called to decide. Will you accept the bond that unites you and Princess Alyra, and through this, the future of our peoples? Ethan's heart beat loudly in his chest. He looked at Alyra, whose eyes shone with calm hope. He remembered their first meeting, a chance rescue in a storm of rocks, her soft smile when she said, "I wish." The danger they had faced together, the choices that had changed his life forever. He took a deep breath. I was a simple man from a small station in space. I never dreamed I would stand here today, but I see now that what started by chance has grown into something greater. He looked around the hall. I accept this bond, not just for myself, or Princess Alyra, but for the hope it brings to both our peoples. The room was silent for a moment. Then a ripple of murmurs spread. Alyra stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. Together, we will build a future of peace, friendship, and strength. We will face whatever comes, united. The Emperor smiled warmly. So be it. The news spread quickly across the Empire and to Earth. People from both worlds watched the announcement with curiosity and hope. Back on the Saravari capital, preparations began for the formal ceremony. The palace was alive with activity. Artists painted grand murals, musicians practiced new songs, and the streets filled with citizens. Eager to witness the historic moment, Ethan and Alyra spent their days preparing as well. They trained, planned, and learned more about each other's worlds. Despite the gravity of the situation, there were moments of laughter and quiet friendship between them. One evening, they walked through the palace gardens, the sky painted in soft pink and purple hues. Ethan smiled. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad my joke wasn't just a joke. Alyra laughed softly. Sometimes wishes come true when we least expect them. The day of the ceremony arrived. The great hall was filled with dignitaries, soldiers, and citizens from both worlds. Ethan stood beside Alyra as they approached the central platform. The Emperor spoke the ancient words of unity, and the bond between Ethan and Alyra was sealed before all. As they stood hand in hand, Ethan felt a strength unlike any before. They were no longer just a human and an alien princess. They were symbols of hope, proof that even in the vastness of space, friendship and trust could build bridges between worlds. Later, as the crowd cheered, Ethan and Alyra stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city. The stars sparkled above, endless and bright. We have a long road ahead, Ethan said quietly, but we will face it together, Alyra replied. The future was uncertain, but their bond was strong. And with that, a new chapter began. One where two worlds joined as one.